What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the page. Thank you for those of you who already commented and subscribed to the last videos. I want to talk today about systems of degradation, kind of trying to establish a place that we can start to build from and apply solutions to. So, like I said in the last video, there are many factors contributing to tinea. And in this video, I'm just going to talk about one of the systems that I'm aware of that I don't think is really getting a lot of emphasis on. I don't hear a lot of people speaking about this, but I think if you can start to grasp the concept, that you can start to apply pinpoint solutions to this concept and start finding benefit in your skin. So the first thing I want to talk about is kind of a backtrack of how I came to this equation. So there were some scientists in Sweden, and these were some of the first scientists that were able to convert two strands of yeast into Tinea versicolor. And they did this in both humans and rabbits. And this is really important to understand because we know Tinea comes from Malasezzia Fur Fur, which is really just a dormant yeast that lives naturally on the skin. But something happens. They say it happens usually in immunocompromised individuals or in humid climates. But I want to start to really get more niche and start to talk about why this is happening. So these scientists, they were able to inoculate and infect both humans and rabbits, and they did this by means of occlusion. So occlusion means that they taped fungi on tape and they applied it to both the rabbits and the humans. They also tried to infect humans and rabbits without having to do occlusion, so they just applied the fungi straight on the skin, and those sites, they did not succeed. And it says it in the paper, we were only able to infect these people and rabbits with Tinea versicolor by means of occlusion. So when you read the paper, it says that occlusion worked by means of increased temperature, increased carbon dioxide levels, and increased moisture. And this was back in the 80s. So these are guys who are focusing on yeast, and maybe they're not really like pinpointing a lot of other biological and physiological parts of the system. Because when I read this, the first thing I thought of was hypoxia, the fact that they put tape on top of the skin for 7 days. Okay, they kept it on the skin. So hypoxia is another term for deoxygenated state or low oxygen. And in low oxygen, yes, you're going to get more carbon dioxide, but you're also going to get a few other byproducts. So when you get a low oxygen state, you're going to increase your lactic acid. Lactic acid wasn't in the paper, but you can see in other areas of science where they start to talk about occlusion. They can talk about vascular occlusion or occlusion near different organs. Lactic acid is pretty well established that it is one of the factors that are a part of how hypoxia works. Okay, and this is also something that Otto Warburg back in the 1930s won a Nobel Prize for. And so lactic acid and oxygen, they're competing. It's like a survival mechanism, the anaerobic state, and you're trying to sustain itself. But at a point, lactic acid can't just keep on being produced. That becomes toxic. And so what happens is the body will call in for some vasodilation by means of nitric oxide. So there's a lot of people on the internet and a lot of hype out there about nitric oxide because it improves circulation and it will help vasodilate the vessels, capillaries, and increase your oxygen supply. So this is a response to the stress. This is a response to low oxygen and more lactic acid. Now, if you look into nitric oxide and some of the associations with it, nitric oxide is obviously a nitrogen compound, and fungi live and thrive off of nitrogen. So if you look into some studies, and I'll post some below, they've shown that nitric oxide helps the fungi produce hyphae. Remember, this is something that you want the yeast to remain calm. You don't want them to produce hyphae. Once they start becoming filamentous, they start wreaking havoc and start traveling and growing places and growing on your skin. You want them to be stable. And nitric oxide has been shown to make the fungi grow. Arginine, which is something that people use when they work out because it brings lactic acid down and it kind of keeps your pump up. It increases nitric oxide. That's what arginine pills do. Arginine has also been shown to produce fungal growth, And interestingly, there was a study, I think it was with arginine or it was with just nitric oxide. I'll post it below. But the nitric oxide compound specifically inhibited the azole compounds from stopping the growth of fungi. So if you go to a doctor, you're going to get ketoconazole, fluconazole, itraconazole, all of those azole drugs. Those are the ones that they specifically prescribe you for. And interestingly enough, the nitric oxide was able to stop the azole compounds from working. So this is something to be aware of, right? Like low oxygen, lactic acid, and then nitric oxide. This is kind of like this triad, and I think these are all areas that you could build on. Being in a low oxygenated state, you could be in there for multiple reasons. Obviously, low oxygen state, you could have much more serious problems than just the fungal growth. Like you could have anemia, you could have cardiovascular issues. The fungi could be just one of the problems. But the low oxygenated state is something to be aware of. You can go and get blood work and get your lactic acid levels checked. And obviously, unless you have like really, really bad fungi everywhere, you could have a through the roof lactic acid. Well, that's one of your issues. But if you have something that's borderline, then that's something that you want to start to bring down. And then the third one, like I said, nitric oxide. Yeah, nitrogen helps fungi grow. So naturally, you want to stop the production of nitric oxide from occurring in your body. But I think the real solution is increasing that blood flow, increasing that circulation. And that's what's more of a principle that I want to start building on, but I want you to kind of just get an understanding of this concept, right? So occlusion, hypoxia, lactic acid, nitric oxide. Tell me what you guys think about this. I'm gonna post some links below. Do you have circulation issues? Like if you're listening to this and you have TV, do you have any kind of circulatory issues as well? Is this something that makes sense to you? You let me know. Let me know what you think. I'll talk to you guys soon. Yeah.